Welcome back. My name is Amanda and I own Whimsy Pot Studio, where I make whimsical and witchy inspired ceramics. It's early in the morning and my kids and I just made some muffins. After we finish getting ready for the day, we're gonna pick up some of my pottery from the local pottery studio where I get all of my things fired. I have some glazed pieces that just came back and we're gonna go to the thrift store. I have a market in 2.5 weeks, and every now and then I'm just gonna look for a couple more items. They have some really great display things at a thrift store. If you are new to markets or want to try them out or want to elevate your booth display, I really suggest going to thrift stores and look frequently. You're not gonna find a lot of things the first time you go or first couple times you go. It's kind of an investment and it's like a treasure hunt, and you might really find some things. So later on, I'll give some tips on what you can find there and how you can use those things to elevate your space. When you have a really captivating market table, it draws people in and they want to go look at your space. And sometimes you need display items to do that, to really showcase your pieces. And this is a trick that I've used this whole time, just using things that I find at the thrift store to elevate my space and make it also one of a kind and very unique. No one's things will look like yours. And when you get creative, as we are creative people, you can make some really wonderful, magical things happen when you use things that you have thrifted. It's a very cheap alternative to buying really expensive displays. We know that the displays can be really expensive, and more often than not, you need more than one thing to display your pieces. You can't just invest in one piece and display all of your items that way. It often takes a lot of things, so that could be hundreds or thousands of dollars that you're spending on displays. And I'm not saying it's not worth it, but I know at least for me, I'm still not at a point where I'm gonna spend a couple $100s on just one display piece. And if that's gonna hold you back from starting, then I'll show you some advice and some tips when we get to the thrift store on things that you can use, that you can thrift, that you can buy secondhand on Facebook Marketplace, things like that. That way you can elevate your space for a really affordable price before you're ready to invest in those larger pieces. While my muffins were baking in the oven, I came down and finished up some chalices that I had. I started them last night. I throw my chalices in 2 different pieces. I throw my cup at first, which is what I did last night. And then once they're leather hard and ready to trim, I flip them upside down, trim them, and then I add the foot at that point and it becomes one piece altogether. I've never had any cracking that way or anything, so I really suggest trying this out. Come along with me for the rest of the day. We've got a lot of work to do, a lot more market prep, some more glazing to do, and I'll show you some things that I got recently from the Pottery Studio.
Started leaning that way, 4 tires cut into the clay. It dries up and now there's just one road to take. It's growing up over with green, so easy to drive on, but not what it seems. The poison is spilling upstream, and it's taking out every living trying, and even if you could, it wouldn't come out like it should. This stubborn kudzu just covers these words. Could you listen to somebody else? Will you only drink from the thoughts of yourself? Are you under the canopy spell? You're digging your heels.
It is many hours later. We did all of the errands we had to run. Kids are napping. But I'm going to show you everything that I got from the thrift store. First, and probably the best, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of displays that I want. The ones for my potion bottles that I want, it'll be probably $60 to $70 for this display. But for right now, for the first market of 2025, before I just start spending all this money, I found a $5 spice rack from the thrift store that will sit like this, and I think it's meant for your spices. But for me and my purposes on my booth table, it will hold my potion jars like this. Like that. All over. I could fit a bunch on here. And for now, this will serve its purpose as my display for this, so they're not just laid out on the table. There's some sort of science in people's brains, some psychology of it, whatever. When they're walking by, they really need something to catch their eye, because I know that a lot of the products that I make are beautiful, and I'm sure yours are too. The way our brains are wired, maybe that's just consumerism and capitalism, if something is not aesthetically pleasing and eye-catching to us as we're walking by it at a market, we might not be drawn into that booth. You want as many things as you can to draw someone into the booth. Not to make it overstimulating so where they don't know where to look or there's too many things to look at. But I have these great potion bottles to display, and I might want to display them in a cohesive way. So it says to the person, come look, come pick me up. Look how neatly it's displayed and organized, and everything has its place and purpose, and you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to get that done. The next thing I got, which many of us get for our booth displays, is one of these crates, these wooden crates. They go, depending on where you buy them from and what size you're getting, can go anywhere from $10 to $20, which is not bad. But a lot of people want like 4 or 5 or more to display their items. A lot of people who crochet use these kinds of displays. Yes, there's some wear and tear on it here, like you saw earlier in the video. When I do my displays, I also add in some fabric draped right all around my display pieces. So all of my different types of shells and levels and things like that all have like a draped element of a fabric, which, as I showed earlier, please look at the fabrics in your area. You want to be conscious of stains or rips, bugs, and things like that, but it's going to be okay. There will be visible signs of anything dangerous that you should not use at the thrift store, and they vet all those things and all of those items already, so it's really going to be okay. Look at the fabrics, look at the curtains, look at the tablecloths, because there are so many beautiful things that if you go, that sounds like Whimsy pots. That fabric just screams Whimsy pots aesthetic. It's just another element that you can add to elevate your booth. So this will be draped. It's not going to be noticeable. And what I like about these, this is actually the exact crate that I already have. I have like 4 of them, I think, already that I use. There's a couple on my shelf over there in the back. I use this to carry my items as well. So like my tablecloths and other displays, I pack it all in here. So it's also like a functional crate to carry your things. And then you take them all out and then set this up. The way I plan on using this one is probably like this. It'll be facing the customer like this on the table. And I will drape over a fabric like this, and it'll cover this up entirely. And then this is a level shelf. So items will go here and items will go on top. Again, with the psychology of the way you make your table, you want different tiers. One of the good things about getting them at the thrift store is that you're not going to keep buying the same products over and over again. All of my displays, baskets, things like that that I've gotten, and you can flip over the basket, by the way. If you get a flat, square, or rectangular basket, you flip it over and there's your tier. As long as the bottom of that basket is really sturdy and kind of level and doesn't rock when you put it on the table, that is a shelf. You need some sort of like leveling thing, because just the way that our brains are wired to work when they're at a market. And if you have the most beautiful things, but you just lay them out on the table, no one's going to come look. They're going to walk by and go to the booth that's aesthetically pleasing. It feels like we're giving in to that consumeristic kind of mentality if we go, okay, we need our booth to look aesthetically pleasing. but you don't need to spend a lot of money in order to achieve those things. You really don't. So these will be different levels, and I have other things that are taller and to create some sort of depth. I'm sure people who are actual professional marketers can describe this a little bit better than me, but I think you'll hear this tip often from people who have done a lot of markets. They'll say the same thing, that you want eye-catching displays that make sense, that have a purpose, and that are appealing to the eye with different levels, different textures, different colors, and things like that. And make sure you find things that fit you and fit your brand. So for example, most or all of my displays are wooden. People often say like that my booth looks very unique or different because there's just so many different elements to it, but in a simple way, not in a confusing or chaotic kind of way. Everything has its purpose. So anyways, that's that. Let me show you what I picked up from the Pottery Studio, and we'll have to sand those things and water test them, make sure there's no leaks, and get them onto our shelf. Okay, first things first, here's another thing that I've thrifted in the past. This is a real crystal dome, and it didn't have a stand to it, so I made a stand to go with it. It's purple with these really nice green glaze strips. This is the first one that I've made because I bought a few glass domes, and every time I go to the thrift store, I look for more. I didn't find any this time though. And I was able to get this to fit perfectly. So I made a lip on the side so when you move it around, it doesn't just like fall off right away. Just a beautiful piece of decor, or a single cupcake, or maybe a candle or something. Next, I made this bowl a really long time ago. I just never glazed it. It's a little bit wonky because it's like when I really first started throwing, and the rim is a little bit thick, but it's sturdy. It would be a great fruit bowl or even a serving dish for some sort of meal. But that's glazed up beautifully, and I really like how that came out. I do kind of want to keep it for myself. Next up, we have a hanging planter. That came out super good. I have 3 holes here. I'm gonna have to order some more hangers for them. They have this new design where I added the high wire hooks at the bottom. That way, this will be the first test of it. I have to, make sure it's not leaking because of this. It is glazed on both sides, but there is a literal hole here for this wire. So I have to make sure it doesn't leak so you can use it and water your plants. But I'd like to add a chain here with maybe some beads, but also add a sun catcher at the bottom, like one of those crystal kind of sun catchers that makes like the rainbows in your room. So I'd like to add like a long one like that. I have no idea where to get the materials for that, how to even start to do that, but I'm gonna give it a try, and I sure hope it works out because I made 4 of these hanging planters. Here's the next one of those. This is a mushroom one. And again, here's the hook right at the bottom. There's no cracking here or hole or anything. We have some soap dispensers. These are both different type of mushrooms on there. One more of those. And here's our first Pride desk friend. Here's the trans flag. This came out really well. I got a sale on Etsy this morning, so I think I'm gonna package that up and then possibly water test some of these items. Let some water sit in here for a couple of hours to make sure that nothing leaks. I've got a little bit of glazing that I want to get done today, especially of some new items. And then I actually might build another display that I bought that I did invest in, but last year, towards the end of the year, this display that I had been keeping my eye on went on sale, like by $20. So I think it was only $30 when I bought it. And it's an indoor plant stand. So it has, I think, 3 tiers, and then it has an area for hanging plants. And I've had a display for myself, for my plants, my planters, like these guys, and some medium-sized ones as well. I had a stand that was my personal indoor plant stand for my own plants, And when I started doing markets, I took all my plants off and I said, I'm not gonna buy a new display right now, another one. I'm just gonna use this, and I repurposed that for many, many times. And now I get to use that for myself again in my own home. When I had my hanging planters, I just hung them by their hooks to the sides of my canopy. So I no longer have to do that. I hit my head on the planters that were hanging like 5 or 6 times throughout last year's markets. So I'm happy that won't be happening to me anymore. Now I'll have a place where all my plants are, and it'll be a separate display. So now I will have 3 display areas because I have 2 6-foot tables. I'll have the new planter stand. So I think I'll build that today. Make sure it's good because I never opened it when I bought it last year. I just knew that I would want it for this year and it was on sale. So that was one of those times where I made that investment because it was a really good sale. And I had been repurposing my things over and over again for long enough to where I was like, it's time to invest in the next thing that will really elevate my planters and make them look so eye-catching and cohesive all together. So let's do that. I'm gonna find the piece that I sold on Etsy and start to package that up. Here is what sold. It's a jar with a moon on top. This is an old design of my jar because I think literally this week that I have figured out how to do a closed form jar without it cracking on the inner lid. If you know, you know. It kept getting, you know, it was wet or it wasn't drying out slowly enough or evenly enough. And so if you need a tip on how to do a lidded jar, that's one form where you cut it in the middle or at the top, and then you trim the inner lid. You know, have you seen those? So when you throw the piece, I make 2 holes with my needle tool. One at the top, literally at the top of the jar, right here, with just the needle tool, 1 poke. And then when you make the indent for where the lid will be, where it'll attach, do 1 hole there with the needle tool, just right across. And that'll allow enough airflow to come in so it dries evenly from the inside out. Because if it doesn't dry evenly or there's moisture stuck inside, that's what is causing the cracking. The other issue, so I tried that before, but then when I went to, you know, the next day, it's leather hard and I trim it all up and get the lid fitting in there. Then I closed up the hole. Number 1. Don't close the hole. The clay will shrink enough from the 2 firing processes, that hole will shrink. Also, you're putting the hole at the top, not the bottom of the piece. So you won't have any leakage because the hole's on the top. I'll show you later on when I go to glaze some of my new lidded jars because they're still greenware right now. But I left the holes there because I'm pretty sure they will close up enough, especially after they're fully glazed. Once I knew that the lid fit into the jar, I let them dry out separately. I did not leave the lid on the jar while it dried out. That might be overkill, I'm not sure because I haven't tried to let it dry out while it's in the jar, but I let them dry out separately so there wasn't moisture stuck in the jar. And I kept the hole in the lid just in case. And when they both became fully bone dry, which they are now, the lid still fits perfectly because there was no warping or anything. They just both stayed and dried at the same rate, so the lid fit perfectly in there. Last year, I wanted jars so bad that I was like, I will just throw a jar piece like this, and then I will just slab roll some lids. Because it's not my current design anymore, I'm gonna send them a little dragon too. Just as a thank you and just as an extra little thing. Sometimes I like to throw in an extra gift, especially if I'm not too worried about bringing this guy to a market and selling him. I'm just gonna give it away, and I think it's a cute little addition. Who doesn't like a little dragon? I don't know. Anyways, let me wrap this up. Okay, let me show you what I was talking about those jars. So we have, oh my God, I just love, oh, I'm so happy with it. It is a bee on top. It's a new character, which at the end, I just glazed the first one last night, will look like this. He's got some wings on the back. This one's got a booty. And I added some blush features to this one, some little, rosy cheeks. I'm really worried, nervous, excited to see how it'll look clear glazed and finished, because it just really brings them to life. At this stage, especially with the new design, I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna go. When it's underglazed, you can't fully tell. The mushy boys at this point, I know what they'll look like, so I'm not worried in the underglaze phase, but it's a little scary here. But anyway, so this jar has the same bee on it. I have to finish glazing, and it's sitting on a little like pile of honey with some honeycomb designs, and here is that hole. There wasn't like a natural spot to add it here on this jar, whereas this other jar that I have is crystals. The hole is right there in the middle of all of those crystals, so completely hidden. And when you open up the jar, you'll see the hole. This is where I actually added two. And this one is a mushy boy sitting on like a hill or like some moss, and I added the hole. There's one there. And that hole is actually hidden in the moss here. I'm so glad I got this done now instead of in 2.5 weeks right before my market. I would have done it like the day before and been completely stressed out. I forgot to put water in everything earlier, so I'm going to do it now and let it sit overnight, and I'll check it in the morning. I also will be going to the post office in the morning to drop off that package. Today went by so quickly, but I do feel like we got a lot done. I'm going to edit this video tomorrow so I can have it out on the next day. If you're liking everything so far, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave me a comment, maybe introduce yourself, and we can become online friends. Before I go, I just received my sticker design that I had commissioned from someone. Someone DM'd me on Instagram saying that they would be able to make me a custom drawing of my infamous mushy boy. And here is the drawing. I've never used a Cricut or made the die cut stickers, but I got the right sticker paper, I think. I'm sure it's going to take a lot of trial and error to get them right, but I'd love to have them for this first market coming up in 2.5 weeks. So I have 2.5 weeks to figure out how to make these stickers. If you have any tips at all about how to make them easily at home, as a beginner with a Cricut and some paper and an inkjet printer, please let me know. And I'll leave the artist's information linked below if you want to check them out. They do a lot of great commissions and just a lot of good stuff on their Instagram. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.